It is May 1st, and would you all please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please have a seat. We thank you for joining us tonight. We're very excited to see this large turnout, so we are going to adjust our agenda order. So be prepared. And moving forward to the approval, deletions, and additions, Dr. Braga.
Thank you, Dr. Malker. You do have a revised agenda at your station. Roman numeral 7A4, I've added review of board policy 9130 to my section. Mr. Gandolfi under Roman numeral 7B1 has some adjustments to his personnel recommendations. Everything else is as presented last week.
Move to approve.
Second.
Right, we have a motion. Do we have any questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And motion carries. Thank you. And Mrs. Lesentine, correspondence?
There is no correspondence for tonight.
All right. I would like to recommend that we take item 7A1 and take care of that right now. That is my motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? All right. Well, we're going to do it.
It's
All in
Kaler night.
favor? All opposed? All right, Kaler night. And Clark night, too. All right, we are moving forward with the student recognitions from Clark Middle School, Kaler Middle School, dance team, and Science Olympiad. So. And Clark Middle School rep, is that you, Joe?
Yeah, he's actually here. Mr. Jeff Magyar?
Yes, I am. So you read this? Just speak on this. You're good.
Okay, I'm Jeff Magers. I am a social studies teacher from Clark, and I'm here on behalf of Declan Gallagher. I have something that prepared for this. Declan Gallagher, an 8th grade student at Clark, recently qualified for the state level of the National Geographic Bee. The Bee competition consists of a series of random questions about national and world geography. The national competition started at the classroom level, in which Declan participated and won in his advanced social studies class. He then went on to compete against other classroom winners from Clark, where he was again successful. After winning the school competition, Declan took an online regional test of 70 difficult geography questions. The top 100 students taking this test qualified for the state level in Indianapolis. Declan was one of these students. On March 31st, Declan competed against 101 other Geography Bee winners. In the initial round, he missed only one of 8 questions, a very difficult one. Only 20 other students at the state level missed that one question. Normally, scoring 7 out of 8 questions would have qualified Declan for a tiebreaker round to make it to the finals. Excuse me. Unfortunately, for the first time in competition history, 10 other students had a perfect score, so Declan didn't make it to the final round. By qualifying for the state level of the National Geographic Bee, Declan is in the top 1/10 of 1%. That means only 1 out of 1,000 students nationwide makes it to state. We at Clark are extremely proud of Declan Gallagher. He's a talented student at a great young age. So. Thank you.
Way to go.
Good evening, members of the board.
Good evening. Good evening.
I'm very proud to recognize our dance and science Olympiad teams tonight. And at this time, I will have our dance coach, Kelly Butler, come on up.
My name's Kelly Butler. This is my 2nd year as the dance team coach. A little bit of our recap. We actually picked the team a year ago in May. We started their choreo and camps in July. Practice started the first day of school. Throughout their competition season, they were undefeated in jazz and hip hop. Going into regionals, they were regional champions in hip hop, third in jazz, finishing out state championships, winning first place in hip hop, third place in jazz. So they stayed undefeated all year in hip hop, which was pretty cool because this is the first hip hop state championship for Kaler. So thank you to the girls. They worked really hard. They came together and formed a really nice bond. And thank you to the parents. Without you guys, we wouldn't be here either. So good job, girls. Okay. So I'll go ahead and call them up for their certificate. Emma Anthony. Okay. Briley Borsma. Madison Glocka. Hala Haddad. Hala Haddad. Allison Helpers. Isabella Holdren. Caroline Good. Lila Lopez. Is she here? Nope. Nope. All right. Megan Martowitz. Gianna Polos. Lily Rogers. Okay, and that's our team. Good job.
Now for our Science Olympiad team, did equally well through a long season. At this time, I'd like to introduce the coaches for our Science Olympiad team. We have Jennifer Zolman and Denise Kelly.
Don't mind us, our allergies are bothering us.
I coach track, so my voice is gone.
Yeah. Our team started all the way back in August, and we compete at competitions all year long, 23 events. We do all the different branches of science. So we do, not only do we do the STEM, the science, technology, engineering, and math, we do biology, we do chemistry, we do all different things, and our kids compete. We did 3 invitationals this year, and we did regional. We made 3rd at regional, which got us our place at state. We got 13 out of 37 at state. And we took 1st place in aerial scrambler, 1st place in microbe mission, 4th place at towers, 4th place in, what was the other 4th place? Can't remember what the other 4th place was. I have a typo on my thing. When we were at state. Our build events, did anybody bring any building event things? What did you bring?
I brought all 3 of them.
Do you have them?
Yeah.
Okay, can you bring them up? So our students during the course of the year, some of the building events they build, and it's something that's set, and then they have to tweak the things all year long. Some things they build, they break, and they have to rebuild things, like the planes. This was our wheeled vehicle, or the scrambler, and then, oh, do you need somebody help them? We've got our towers and then our right stuff. So these are some of the different things that they built, and all the things on the left got broken repeatedly and had to get rebuilt. So they probably built, what do you say, 30, 40 of each one of those things? At least?
Yeah, at least.
At least. So, yeah. So that's something that we've done, so thank you. Okay. Okay. Okay, so, oh, they're right here. Right there or here? Oh, here, okay. Okay, so. Okay, yeah, how about you?
I can't say.
Okay, Kaden, Box. Thank you. Evan Gundalek. Shelby Palmer. Joshua Zapata. Matt Swan. Ben Cohn. Ethan Sesh.
And the medals they're wearing are the ones they won this year.
Yeah, all the medals are the ones that they got from different competitions throughout the year.
From this year.
From this year only. Jacob McQuaig. Olivia Tech. Garrett Techie. Nurali Baha. Abby Bouchet. Dylan DeYoung. Brittany Gear. Ellie Pelosa. Paige Verity. Bridget Kane. Rachel Mendoza. Braden Mahoney. Alex Wada. Jabari Morris. I think that's it. Yeah, okay. So we'll wrap those up. Did I mess everything else up? Sorry. Okay.
At this time, if I can give a round of applause to the parents of both our Science Olympiad and dance teams for all your help and participation in sports.
Well, thank you for coming tonight and letting us honor the students and the parents of our young Clark Geographic Bee winner. Are the parents here? Would you like to stand up too? No. You know, parents, and we know this happens because you are dedicated, and you bring your children, you work with them, we have dedicated staff members. All these groups have been working since last summer. That's just amazing. So the dedication, perseverance, tenacity, see what happens when we all work together. But thank you for coming tonight, and if you'd like to stay, you're more than welcome. But we figure most of you want to go on home and kind of get homework started, right? So again, thank you. We appreciate it. I'm sorry. And you guys in the back can move up now if you'd like. Oh, what is All right. Thanks for your flexibility, everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to liaison committee updates. Mr. Marshall, did you have anything to share tonight?
No, there's a meeting later this month. Help me out, Rebecca.
I was just going to try to pull that up really quickly.
Thank you very much.
May 24th at 4 o'clock is our
Thank you
next
very
Westlake Managing Board in the School Town Munster.
Okay. And Mr. Marshall, nothing but personnel interview, correct?
No, we have not had anything recently.
Okay, and Mr. Baxo, anything with Dyer Parks?
No, the meeting's coming up here in May, early May.
Anything with Dyer redevelopment?
No, that'll be the same week.
All right, and Mrs. Suze, anything with Dollars for Scholars?
Yesterday, they had their tea, and there were 55 recipients. They gave over $77,000, and they were able to get 21 volunteers for next year. We'll see if that happens, but
They being the new president.
the new president.
One Rob
yes.
Seuss.
Did he take that job?
He did.
He did.
Good for him. Thank you. And do you have anything for St. John redevelopment?
No meeting scheduled at this time.
All right. And Mrs. Lesentine, do you have anything to report for Sherrville?
Nothing for Sherrville this time, but I do want to reiterate what a great job Val Wisnowski did for Dollars for Scholars and how awesome it is that Mr. Seuss has stepped up to take over that responsibility. It was a fabulous event for all the kids and just a great opportunity for them. So
It's great.
great job to both of them.
Okay. And legislative committee, the only thing I wanted to bring up is to make everybody aware that the Indiana Coalition for Public Ed out of Monroe County has filed a lawsuit because of a charter school that's trying to surface within their area. So it'll be interesting to watch that. Lake Central Education Foundation, we're continuing to grow and develop, and we have a meeting in actually May 9th, I believe, for officers. And Wellness Committee, do you have anything on that, Dr. Barco, or?
Not at this time.
Okay, all right, that's it then, thank you. Official school board business topics, consent agenda, Dr. Barco.
Thank you. Seek board approval for the minutes from the regular meeting on April 17th and acknowledgement that we did meet and to discuss our board policies also on the same evening, April 17th, although no minutes were taken.
Move to approve.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions, discussion?
Before we vote, can I also get you to approve the claims payroll and
Absolutely.
extracurricular? Fantastic.
Sure. All right, so we have a board motion, a motion on the table to approve the minutes and the approval of the claims, payroll, and extracurricular expenditures. So all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, and motion carries. All right. Public comments to address any of our agenda topics? Okay. And official board business topics, regular agenda. Dr. Barco.
Thank you. Wanted to update the board on HEA, House Enrolled Act 409. Al's going to talk a little bit about it as well. This came to mind because we do have our first informal meeting with the Lake Central Teachers Association scheduled for this Thursday. But HE 409 talks about the timelines and how formal bargaining will work beginning July 1st of 2017. The first day of formal bargaining now has been pushed back to September 15th. So in the past, we always tried to get with our teacher leadership in early August, have them meet with their group to ratify the contract as soon as possible so that we could get the raises passed on to our staff for the current year as quickly as possible. This pushing back the timeline makes it, absolutely impossible to avoid having retro checks now. So I just want to make sure the board understands why the thing has been delayed. It's delayed per the law. The rules regarding impasse remain in place. We feel that our relationship with our association currently is relatively strong. We do informal bargaining throughout the course of the school year, and we share with them mainly at the beginning of each meeting the same spreadsheet you see with revenues and expenditures, so they know how we're operating, because obviously that's important in terms of what's available to share with staff for the future. So, you know, we as you know, have historically tried to spend 100% of what we bring in each year, or near to it. And in the past, we've underspent by a little bit. This year, we overspent by a little bit. And next year, it's likely we'll overspend by a little bit again. But we'll keep you posted on our projections. And if we do off or deal, you know, as we've done in the past, that is allowable for executive session to talk to the board about what we're offering and what the cost of that program will be. And we'll be sure to do that once we get to, you know, the official start of that negotiating period, which will be September 15th. The reasoning behind the changing of the timeline per everything I've read from our state legislators is they want schools to use actual ADM for the year, so they're using not a guess, but more a firmer number. And for people who have no cash balance, that's important that they not spend any more than they have, because they don't have the ability to do so. So in one way it makes sense. On the other hand, maybe we should go back to the way it used to be in the distant past, where raises kicked in January 1st, so things are a little cleaner. But for now, we'll keep operating as we are, and Al will do some follow-on up on his agenda later on that item. So hold your questions till Al does his piece. Okay, No World Tobacco Day is my next item, and that is related to my involvement with Tobacco-Free Lake County. As you may know, one of the things that the coalitions in Indiana were trying to do was to pass that, what started out as a $1.50 tax increase per pack of cigarettes. The House pushed it out at $1, although Speaker of the House, Brian Bosma, said he thought in the end he would be okay with a 60-cent increase per pack. In the end, the Senate did not vote to do any increase on the tobacco product. And I think there's just a disconnect between the General Assembly saying we don't need the money, so we don't want to raise the tax, when the anti-smoking and anti-tobacco movement is more interested in having healthier Hoosiers. And so it's tricky. Obviously, I'm the educator liaison to the committee in Lake County, but I have to be careful how much I do, because most of my lobbying efforts are related to our world and school. Although I do support their idea that, especially when it comes to young people, if the product is more expensive, it may deter some children from ever starting. And if they never start, then they won't get hooked / addicted. And then, you know, we know that it's one consumer product that is out there that leads to a lot of disease and death. So hopefully they can keep moving on that. But the point of this is, there is a World Smokeout Day on May 31st, and as a member of the coalition, I have agreed to have that press conference in this room on that day at 9 a.m., where we intend to have a group of superintendents say, we are smoke-free campuses already, but we want to do what we can to continue to educate students, to deter them from ever starting on tobacco products and down that road that can lead to health issues. So we will be the host of that event. I wanted the board to know about it before you heard about it from somebody else. So you don't have to take action. It's a press conference to get school superintendents. Last year we had the 3 hospital chains got together and said, hey, let's take a longer look at, you know, the long-term ramifications of, you know, tobacco use, which in Indiana is rather extensive. In Lake County, we're the highest county in the state, but as a state, we're like 13 out of 50 in usage. So we have a lot of tobacco use in our state, and so that's the initiative, just to try to draw a little bit more focus to it and do what we can to reduce that usage.
Okay.
Any questions about No World Tobacco Day?
Do you want any of us here for that?
If you want to, it'd be great.
Okay. We'll be here and cheer you on.
Thank you. And so I think I should also share that with the coalition, I suggested that when I reach out to my fellow superintendents that we're going to try to get at least a person or two from our local town governments, because last year was the hospital chains getting together saying we're united and we'd like to see something be done. This year it's the education community, and maybe next year we can have some local town elected officials say the same type of thing. To our statewide legislators, let's look at ways to reduce tobacco use among our citizens, not just kids, not just adults, but all people.
Perfect. All right, very good, thank you.
Okay, my last item this evening is to briefly review our board policy 9130. This issue arose due to an incident at Holman Elementary that I won't get into the details, but it was some issues regarding staff members. And so I wanted to review with the board and make sure the board was okay with everything that our board policy says. So I am looking for some input from our school board members on this item. But as matters regarding a staff member arise, our current policies is the first thing that's supposed to happen is we ask the constituent, in this case a parent/guardian, to visit with the individual, and that has taken place. The individual who met with the parent felt like the meeting went well, and yet we still got that correspondence that was directed to the board involving certain things that concern that individual. But with our policy, we do have it written so that it works its way through the administrative team, where we get the opportunity to visit and try to meet the needs of those parents and guardians to try to alleviate their concerns about any mistreatment or mishandling of a situation involving their student. And I want the board to understand that our policy under 9130 matters regarding staff members, first level, if it's any kind of abuse or anything that even smells of criminal activity, we call them the authorities. So this isn't something that gives us the chance to say, oh, we're going to handle the matter internally. If it is anything that involves legal issues, we go to the people who handle those legal matters. But nonetheless, I just wanted to make sure, because the person had submitted a document, wanted it read into our board meeting as part of correspondence, and we have a policy that addresses it, that when it is something where we have the chance to seek a remedy for that constituent, that administration gets the opportunity to do that prior to anything going public. So I open it up now for the board. I did send this to you earlier today. Hopefully you had a chance to review it. If you have any questions about how either Al or I or anybody interprets this particular policy.
I have no problems with that policy. It's totally appropriate in this situation as well.
I'd like to add, I fully concur with what Dr. Bracco has stated. I think it is self-explanatory. If a person were to read it, it makes all the sense in the world. First steps first.
I think this is typical chain of command. I think everyone it's no different than due process.
Absolutely. Mrs. Susan?
I agree with all, it's good.
I'm in agreement too. So.
Okay, so our move will be to reach back out to that guardian and have a conversation to hear the concerns again, see if there are any additional concerns, explain how we think the issue has been resolved, and to explain also why that correspondence was not read into the record this evening, because we have a policy that says we manage these types of issues a different way. Agreed. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. You're welcome. All right, and moving on, Mr. Gandolfi.
Thank you. My first item is just to seek your approval of the personnel recommendations that have been revised for this evening.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries.
Thank you. My second item is just to talk a little bit more what Dr. Bracco talked about earlier, and that is our collective bargaining timeline. Dr. Bracco did state that we will start informal negotiations this Thursday with LCTA negotiating team. We will meet periodically throughout the summer and our goal is to look at our collective bargaining agreement. We usually start by looking at our language, and then as it becomes a little bit more clear with our ADM through the course of the summer and what our enrollment looks like, we start talking a little bit about money. Rob shares, of course, the spreadsheet with them all the time on what it looks like and where we're at currently, as well as our projections. And then our goal, you know, and I believe the LCTA feels the same way. I mean, we have a great working relationship with the negotiating team, and I think they have a great relationship with their members. You know, our goal is to, you know, get as close to finalizing that collective bargaining agreement close to September 15th when we can open up. I mean, the earlier that we can get that accomplished, the better. We know that we have all the way until November 1st, but you know, it's more meetings, it's more stress, there are things that change. So I think the LCTA, as well as your administrative team, really believes that the closer to the beginning of the year that we can get everything agreed, finalize it, you know, the better off we are. And that's what I believe that our staff expects too. You know, to know what they're looking at, you know, as quickly as the beginning of the year. It's already a tough timeline. I mean, we start school in August, early August, and we can't even start to formally negotiate now until September 15th. So, you know, for a lot of the veterans, this is weird when, you know, your collective bargaining agreement used to always start on July 1st. You know, they were used to knowing exactly what the year looks like, or 2 years, if it was a 2-year agreement, you know, before the first day ever started. And now, you know, it's pushed back a little bit. And, you know, it's always the uncertainty of what's the year going to look like. So we try to ease everybody's minds as quickly as possible. And we do that by collaborating with our LCTs, starting early and working throughout the summer. So we will keep you in the loop on what that looks like as we continue to meet with them periodically throughout the summer.
Okay, any questions about that? No? Okay, thank you, Mr. Gandolfi.
Thank you.
And moving on to Director of Primary Education.
My first item is to seek your approval of the professional leave requests that were included in your board packet.
Move to approve.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. And my second item is just to share some information. At our last board meeting, we had a discussion about half-day kindergarten, and you had asked about some data about other school corporations. So I did contact the DOE and found out that across the state there are 6 school corporations that offer half-day kindergarten. 5 of them are public school corporations and 1 is non-public. 2 of them are in our area. Maryville and Valpo both offer a half-day kindergarten program. MSD Wayne Township and West Lafayette are the 2 of the others. And then I did a little further digging and found that Plum Creek Academy in Dyer also offers a half-day program. We do have students that come from that academy. The other bit of information that I got from the state is that student counts for those half-day programs range from 6 to 26 students. So those school corporations also have a smaller program.
Okay, any questions? I think Mrs. Lesentine had a question about cost. Is that right?
Yeah, my question was just the cost feasibility. But that was, I apologize, that was one of our questions, was what other corporations do it? And then my bigger one is how cost effective it is for us, for the kids to all go to their home schools and then be transported over, and then do they get the same half day from when they start there?
The schedule is the same. So those students meet at their home school and then they're brought over to Bibbage, currently, where the program is located. You know, we have a half-time teacher, so it's half-time salary, half-time benefits. We collect the ADM on those half-time students, and we're given the half-time as well. So, you know, the total cost benefit from a staff perspective, of course, is always based on the salary of that staff member. Right now, you know, we have a staff member who loves that half-day kindergarten, and from a classroom paraprofessional support, it's cost-effective. The transportation, it's hard to weigh what that transportation looks like. I would say when you pick an individual up at Protzman and you're delivering them to Bibbich, you're delivering them right on the way to the bus barn anyway. So that bus really isn't going out of the way. It's just making a couple extra turns and stopping at Bibbich right before they have to head back to the transportation center anyway. So that's why we do have that program located at Bibbich. It is closer. We have room, number one. Number two, it's closer to the transportation department, which is where all the buses are driving to already. So we don't really see that it's costing us a great deal of money in transporting those students one way.
How many schools are those kids coming from, though? Because if they're coming from a Coling and they're going from Coling to Bibbich or to bus barns,
I think,
not
and
necessarily
I
on the way.
can probably speak to last year. I think we had 4 of those students were, and you can correct me if my numbers are off here, I think 4 of those students were from Bibbich. So they were already at Bibbich. I think we had 3 from Protzman, so that was 7.
2 from home.
I think it was 2 from Cohen as well. So, you know, very, very little transportation costs. And so, you know, we believe, and to be honest, I mean, we believe that the program meets the needs of our students and our parents in the corporation, and that's important to us. And that's always our #1 responsibility, we believe, is to take care of the students and the parents that we serve. And we're going to continue to, that's going to be our primary philosophical goal. And our fear, honestly, is if we didn't offer half-day kindergarten to those 11, if 6 of those 11 decided to go somewhere else, now we're losing money. Ultimately, the key is to get them, they have a great experience, they stay with us, and move on. Our fear is if they start somewhere else, we don't get them back, and if we do get them back, it's not until their freshman year in high school. So philosophically, that's our goal, and we believe that the expense is worth it.
Any other questions? Interestingly enough, after the last board meeting, I had time to think about it because I drove by Plum Creek and I went, So even though philosophically I don't agree that there should be 12 students in a classroom at Bibbich, whereas there's 24, 25 in another classroom somewhere else at a different grade level, I struggle with that. But it dawned on me that it makes sense why you're doing it, because you're hooking those kids in and then you're going to have 12 more years with them, which is going to add to our ADM and our monies, and I totally get that. I guess my concern is that we're not taking away from other kids in an effort to do that.
Yeah, and I can address that a little bit. When you think through that, if you have 11 students from, let's just say 4 elementary schools, and then you say, okay, let's just say all 11 choose to stay in the Lake Central School Corporation and choose to go to full day kindergarten. We really wouldn't have enough of those 11 in one building to create another section of kindergarten. So ultimately what you could end up with is higher class sizes in that building in kindergarten, because there's not enough students that, when you divide it out by the number of sections in that building, would bring it down to a range that was feasible to add a section to that building. So if you're doing that, you know, when you have 2 students going to, let's say, Protzman, or 3 students going to Protzman, rarely would that put you over the limit to create another section.
Mrs. Schoen, would you address the piece about us starting with a substantially higher number of people who think they might want half-day kindergarten until our building level administrators talk them into full day? I think that's an important
We spend
piece.
a lot of time in contact with those parents, explaining the benefits of full day kindergarten. So we typically start out with 18 to 20 that think they want half day, and then by the time we talk to them and show them the benefits and have teachers talk to them, we usually have it down to 12, 11. So we do convince a lot of them that the full day is the way to go.
Any other comments? I totally understand your reasoning. My concern is just the other students in other buildings and the ratio, student-teacher ratio. So that's all I can do is just make you aware of my concern. And
Not a problem, and you know that I monitor those class sizes all summer long. Already have a nice big spreadsheet with where we sit right today, and we will continue to monitor those all summer long.
Okay, appreciate every other board member okay with that half-time kindergarten? Because, we've had questions about it, so.
Oh, good.
All right, thank you, appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right, anything else? All right, and Mrs. Castaneda.
Thank you. For my first item, I am seeking your approval for the professional leave request as presented.
Move to approve?
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. For my second item, I am seeking your approval for the field trip request as presented.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and we have a second on the floor. Any questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. And for my last item, I just wanted to give the board an update. We've done some social media presentations for parents in the past. Following those presentations, we've had some parents request further information about how better to monitor their children when they're using cell phones and other devices. So our school resource officer, Jerry Patrick, and I put on a presentation for parents regarding sexting and other issues that are not just impacting Lake Central School Corporation, but school corporations all over. And so we held 2 sessions on Wednesday, April 26th last week. One was during the day and one was in the evening to accommodate parents' schedules. We invited all middle school parents to attend, had about 80 people total show up, and kind of started off talking about what are some of the apps that our students are using, warning parents about some of the ones that are a bit riskier, and then discussed, how it's a lot of the same parenting advice we've given to teenagers over the years. It's just in a very different context. They have unlimited information now. They have unlimited privacy with the cell phones. They have unlimited communication. And so just trying to put it in that context. And the main pieces of advice we gave were just monitoring usage, and we gave them some suggestions for how to do so. Setting boundaries, especially about where that device is stored in the evenings when we sometimes see some of the inappropriate behaviors taking place. Having conversations about how to socialize appropriately. I think it's easy on social media for things to escalate quite quickly. Sometimes even as adults we struggle with that. And so just teaching them to have some conversations face to face, especially when it's a serious conversation. Thinking before they post, because it's permanent. We were actually visiting Adlai Stevenson High School, and I love the phrase that they use. It's that they're not trying to raise 18-year-olds, they're trying to raise successful 35-year-olds. And now, with the way everything is documented, I think that's a very true statement. If this is something that is seen when you're 35 years old, is it something that you're going to really want out there? And talking with their children about that. Following their interests, if they hear about a new app, looking it up on a place like Common Sense Media. If there's a new TV show that's popular and maybe has some questionable content, watching it with their children and talking about it and having good conversations. And then giving them exit strategies. We were all young once, and it's normal for people to make some bad decisions when they're in middle and high school. I think the problem is now that everything is documented, explain to them to reach out to an adult if the situation is too hard for them to handle, and give them some help with that along the way.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
I thought the presentation was excellent. I read through it, I went through the slides, and I thought you guys covered it very thoroughly. Even the new apps and the new things coming out. You guys really did a great job.
They're always changing, so we did
Yeah.
push the parents towards helpful sites like Common Sense Media, where every day they're updating it with what's new and what's trendy, so we can assist them.
Yeah, it was great.
So this was for the middle school parents? Because you did one not long ago for 4th grade parents, correct?
We did. That's our social media presentation that we started off doing last year for middle school parents. We're finding that in speaking with the middle school parents that transition from 4th to 5th grade was sometimes when students got that first cell phone. And so they had wished they had known that when they were transitioning into middle school, which is why we offered the social media conversation to the 4th grade parents.
So the 4th grade, so this was the middle school then, right?
Correct. We sent on the school messenger to all middle school parents.
Any questions, comments? I think the approach, which is consistent and the message is out there all the time, and the awareness is very important, because it's when we let it just kind of die, we lose track of it. But to be on top of it and saying, hey, we're here. Here's another presentation you didn't come to if you missed the last one. So thank you to you and Jerry Patrick also for your work on that effort. Any other questions? Comments? All right, moving on. Mrs. Grimala.
My first item is to seek your approval for the professional leave requests included in your packet tonight.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the table. Are there any questions or discussion? And all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, and motion carries. Thank you.
My next item is just to update the board on some activities we've been engaged in for Lake Central School Corporation throughout this school year. So the Indiana Department of Ed monitors us in the world of special education on many different indicators. It used to be that those were focused almost solely on compliance, meaning were we dotting our I's and crossing our T's. And they're really moving towards outcome measures for students to make sure that we're giving the students the educational services they need to have better outcomes when they leave us. And so part of that is looking at what they call the least restrictive environment. So our responsibility to students with special needs is to educate them in the least restrictive environment possible so they can be successful. So that's measuring the amount of time students are spending out in general education. So to accomplish that, the Department of Ed reviews our data that we submit. And last year they had a target for 69% of students with special needs to be educated in a placement code of 50, which for us means that they're spending 80% or more of their day in general education classes. So that's a high target, and we were, with the data they reviewed last year, we had about 57.97% of our students. So we were about 10% below where that target was. In addition, we had about 13% of our students spending less than 40% of their day in general ed, so that's the most restrictive placement. And they wanted that to be at about 11%. So because we were off from those targets, we were identified to participate in technical assistance, which is their sort of support process through all the school year. So we had a team of 10 staff members, both general and special education, that spent a day together at what was called the Institute on Access, which was really looking at our local data, looking at our practices. So we spent a day with some staff from the Indiana IEP Resource Center. Then we came back and had some tasks to complete, which was, one was a root cause analysis, which was a very long document that we went through as a team, talking about looking at our policies and procedures, looking at our personnel practices, looking at our instructional practices, our curriculum, and really reflecting on those as a group and how are we meeting the needs of all students. We also reviewed some IEPs. They gave us a rubric to look at IEPs and look at the data we're including in our IEPs. So it was a good opportunity for us to look back on our practices. So from that, we created, I spoke with all of the administrators during the summer, just when we got our first initial data, and then followed up through principals meetings this year. We also did professional development at staff meetings, so all of the teachers in the district heard this information and kind of heard what our goals were. We also were able to send staff to what's called a Focus on Inclusion conference, which is a state conference that really focuses on inclusive practices. So teachers from Kaler, Protzman, and Holman all attended that. We worked on cleaning up some of our record keeping. So we made sure that the data that the Department of Ed is monitoring us on is really clean and accurate data, because we did find through this process some errors in that. We also made some changes to how classes are structured here at the high school and at the elementary schools as well. So with all of that, we made some really good progress this year, which is why I'm sharing all of this with you. So we were able to increase our percentage of students served in the least restrictive environment to 62.51% this year. So we are still below target, but the state recognizes that we made some really positive progress this year. So we're kind of kicked out of the monitoring cycle a little bit. They will continue to review our data. There'll be some webinars that we can participate in this year and some opportunities for further training. But they really recognize that the staff here put in some good work, and we made some progress for students. So we'll continue moving forward and doing a lot of the things, some of the changes we made here at the high school, we'd like to push down to the middle schools for next year. And we'll continue working with our staff, but I'm thankful for everyone's support. Dr. Baracco, Mr. Gandolfi, Mrs. Schoen, Mrs. Castaneda. It was really nice to have sort of everybody on the same team here. And the building principals, it was a very, very good year, and I'm very pleased with the progress we made. So, questions? Thank you.
Great initiative.
Any questions?
Oh, I have one.
Of course. So when you say the structures of the classes at the high school changed, tell me what that means.
We made some changes to classes here that are resource classes and support classes, some of our lab classes, to allow students without IEPs to participate in those classes. So They're there as a support for students who haven't been identified as special needs. Our purpose in that is we provide those students with support and hopefully prevent them from needing an IEP. And it also allows our students with special needs to be with the more general peer population.
Okay, and then when you, first of all, did the state give you money to help you with this technical assistance?
They didn't give us money, however.
I mean, you know,
Yeah.
why not ask? Huh?
We
Would
did.
your notes say that, please? Technical assistance with no money. Yeah.
So the Institute on Access, there was no charge for us to attend that. Those supports were provided by staff from the Indiana IEP Resource Center, which is one of the funded resource centers for special education.
Is that out of Indianapolis or?
They're actually based in, they used to be affiliated with Indiana State in the Bloomberg Center. Now I think they're officially located in Zionsville, maybe with some, some remaining ties to ISU. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, so no money then, basically, of course. So you sent teachers from Kaler, Protzman, and Holman?
There's a focus on inclusion conference. So both general and special education staff attended that conference.
So what about the other buildings where the teachers did not go? What about the rest of the buildings at Lake Central?
Well,
how did you decide these 3 buildings?
That was not up to me. We were given priority registration for the conference. So I sent all of that information out to the principals. And then,
I see, okay.
Yeah, and then they were able to choose staff to attend. Certainly Protzman, we have 3 classes for students with significant disabilities at Protzman. So I was thankful that Mr. Brown saw that as a valuable activity for his staff. And then those folks who went to the conferences came back and shared that information with their buildings too.
So with your IEP analysis, what did you find out when you studied your IEPs?
So we had a rubric to go through that was designed, and it looked at both the compliance and also the meaningfulness of our IEPs. So a couple things we noticed is that our response to students struggling was often to pull them into more restrictive placements. When we probably could have tried more accommodations, we could have implemented a behavior plan and taken some more steps before we got to pulling them into a direct special education class. That was probably the biggest lesson learned from looking at those. And really making sure, so the other thing that we've done too that I forgot to mention is we've done a lot of work with our special education staff on the data that is available to them about student performance, and really making sure that we're utilizing that data to make our placement decisions, our decisions about goals. So they've been collecting that and meeting with the supervisors, the special education supervisors on that. So we're really trying to make sure that we are making more data-based decisions about student needs rather than just they're not doing well, so we're going to pull them into special education and focusing more on how can we keep them in that regular math class with a highly qualified math teacher and provide some more supports in that environment.
Okay, so if you've got students with IEPs in general ed classes, and then is there support given to those students, inclusionary?
Yep, if that's what the case conference committee determines they need. So we have co-teaching in place at the middle schools and high schools where we have a special education teacher and general ed teaching together. We also have classes with para-educators, paraprofessionals in there to support students. And we may have, like in the elementaries, if we have a 90-minute reading block, that student may be in the regular classroom for 45 minutes, in their homeroom classroom for 45 minutes of that, and then may get some pull-out support for the other 45 minutes where they're getting support in the special education resource room.
So the co-teaching model is really cool and very exciting, and that just adds a lot of depth to the instruction that can happen there. So if I use the term statting, and I know you don't use that. If I have a student going through an IAT, and he has similar needs as Sandy does, and Sandy's in a classroom with co-teaching and that extra help, can he go in that classroom and get that extra help on that specialized area?
Sure, there's no reason. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons we looked at the high school where we created, adding students into those lab classes that were not previously available to students without IEPs, as in sort of another layered intervention.
Yeah, that is so important to use our experts and get the students the help they need. Any other questions? Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
And I know that was quite a journey. That's not easy when you're being monitored like that. So thank you. You're welcome. All right, and Mr. Ledger.
Thank you. I wanted to give the board a brief update on the SALT building construction. We started over spring break, and since then, all the foundations are complete, all the asphalt's complete, all the framing is complete. We are currently sheeting the exterior building as well as the inside, and we do have the roof deck on as well as the felt paper, and the shingles were delivered today, so we'll start roofing, if not tomorrow, probably Wednesday. It's going very well. Weather, if we don't have any big weather impact, we should be done right about the end of school, maybe right around June 1st, so it's going very well.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Ledger? And refresh my memory, Mr. Ledger, when was your meeting with St. John over the sign? Did you have that already?
It's May 22nd.
Oh, May 22nd is coming up. Okay. You feeling good about that?
We're hopeful.
Okay. Hopeful is a good way to put it. All right, very good. Mr. Marino is not here, and Mr. James, Director of Business Services.
Thank you. My first time was to seek your approval on a few donations. First, the High School Interact Club received a donation of $660 from the Rotary Club of Cherville. Second, Mr. Stan Klobuzinski would like to donate $3,000 to Protzman Elementary School and $1,500 to Kaler Middle School in memory of his wife who recently passed away, and he would like that money to be used solely for the purchase of books for the libraries. And I included the letters from him in your board packet, and Mr. Klobuzinski has grandchildren currently at Protzman and at Kaler, so he wishes to make a very generous donation to those school libraries. On the given side, Watson Elementary recently held a Riley's fundraiser, and they would like to donate the $454.58 raised to Riley Children's Hospital. So I seek your approval on those donations received and to be given.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? Do you have any information to share, Mr. Delano?
Next board meeting.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. And my second item, I just want to give the board a little summary of House Enrolled Act 1009, which was passed in essence on the last day of the session, along with the budget bill. This is the bill that turned into House Enrolled Act that is going to pretty much dramatically change school funding or school finance here in a year and a half, in which the school general fund is going away and will be replaced by the education fund. And then the capital projects, transportation, and bus replacement fund are going to now be combined together as what's called the operations fund. If you recall, this topic came up when we met with our local legislators in March. I gave them my concerns about how the bill was written at the time, where originally they were going to make us combine, I think, around 70 different funds together, getting rid of our insurance funds, textbook rental, school lunch, and combine them all into this operations fund along with rainy day. We worked hard with the legislators to kind of get back to the original purpose of the bill, and that's exactly how it ended up turning out without all those extra funds. These two new funds will become effective on January 1st, 2019. The original language had this effective of July 1st of 18. We are glad that the legislators pushed it back another 6 months, because really, even though it's January of 19, a little over about 15 months from now, next summer, in the summer of 18, we will be starting the budget process for calendar year 19. And so that is a good fresh start on how these funds are going to work. Currently, we have a handful of expenditures that will no longer be able to be paid out of this new education fund. If you recall, the state defines different expenditures as called student instructional expenditures. Some things are more so considered overhead. So things that are currently general fund, I have listed on the handout I gave you. Expenses for the school board, superintendent's office, pretty much our central office of business department, HR, payroll, all of our custodial, utilities, insurance, security, all of those things make up about 20% of our current general fund expenditures. Those will all be moving now to this operations fund, which means then the tuition support we receive to cover those expenses will have to be transferred to the operations fund. And all that process, the legislators recognize that, and so that whole process is spelled out in the legislation. We'll have to do formal transfers here through the board, and then I believe every 6 months, we will be required to report to the state how much we transferred from the one fund to the other. Transfers are also allowed from operations to education fund. You can move money back and forth. So it's going to be kind of tricky, and to see how all this shakes out. Each school district is going to be different compared. There's a lot of school districts around the state who are really getting hurt by circuit breaker and don't have hardly any money in their CPF, Boston Transportation in the first place, and they're pretty much supplementing all those services through their education fund anyway. So how they work this will be different than like us. We could see some growth in that operations fund, where now currently our CPF fund has a 7-step process to determine the tax rate that's applied to our AV. Now it's just automatically going to increase by what's called the annual assessed growth quotient by the state. The state sets it up, in essence, a growth amount, kind of an inflationary number, and that's how much your revenue increases each year. That's been averaging about 2 or 3% each year, which is more than we can get from the state through tuition support. So with some of these expenses moving to that other side, there's a chance that those will grow at a higher percentage over time. But it's all tied to the economy, and if a recession hits, well then that all goes out of whack anyway. So again, I just want to give the board a little update on that. We'll be using the next 12 to 15 months to really dive into this through our professional organizations. It is a big change coming that we'll have to, in essence, educate everybody on. But I'm confident that we'll be able to handle it just like we do everything else. So,
Rob, do you estimate how many transfers this will take per year, or is there any fees associated with
no, because it would just be a board action. We're not moving money from a bank to a bank. It's just more me bringing action to you and say, hey, we'd like to transfer X amount of dollars from this fund to that fund.
And that's it.
You bless it, and then we're good to go.
Okay.
It didn't say how often you had to do it, or if you can just estimate, does that mean we just estimate every 6 months? Do we estimate for the year? I don't want to do it in arrears, but literally the legislation is less than 2 weeks old, so it's just kind of new out there to define how the act really said, though, was a requirement on how often to report those transfers to the state, which was said every 6 months.
Okay.
So, but how often we do it, we'll just kind of use that next year to figure out what the recommendations are, or what's going to be the best practice. So.
Rob, obviously this is not taking effect until 2019, January the 1st. In your best crystal ball effort, how much of a guarantee on the last bullet? You talked about the maximum revenue for the operations fund increasing each year by 2 to 3%. Is there much of a guarantee beyond that?
The code outlines specifically that growth quotient will be applied to this fund. The way that growth quotient is calculated, it has to do with property values statewide, and it's about a year or two in the rears, and that's, I think, a 5-year average. So to answer your question, in recent years, if you recall 2009, 2010, the Great Recession, inflation numbers were way down. That was part of this formula for the last 5 years or so. Now that has rolled off. So in those years when we had the recession, in the calculation, excuse me, we were still getting 2 to 3%. Once that year is off now, there's a possibility that it could increase, but we don't know.
Right.
So. Okay. So I think the 2 to 3 is a conservative amount, if that's what your question is.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Rob.
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
Thank you.
Okay, that's all I have.
Do you know why in the world they wanted these changes? What's the reason behind this?
Theoretically, they said it can give school corporations more local control. by combining CPF, transportation and bus, because currently the way it's set up, they're each their own separate funds, and if I've got extra money in transportation, I can't use that for building needs, and I can't use that for buy additional buses. By combining the the three together, it puts more emphasis on us to manage it, and how much are we going to allocate to bus replacement, how much are we going to allocate to our transportation department. So on that aspect, I like it. We each have our own little theories of this could be the first step for some other hidden agenda, but I'm just going to take it one step at a time, and until something else shoe drops, we're just going to take it as it is.
Good approach.
So.
I just wondered what the initiative was behind it. It was school corporations down south.
Yeah,
I don't even know who proposed this. Do you know what legislator?
Tony Cook from Hamilton County, North Hamilton County.
North Hamilton. Just curious about it. All right, and then tomorrow, I believe that we have the exit audit report.
Wednesday.
Or Wednesday is the exit audit report, so we'll get you information on that. North Hamilton County. Thank you, Rob, for sharing that. Are there any other questions? All right, moving ahead. Public comments, anyone? No? Okay. And board comments?
I have
none.
None?
I have none as well.
Oh, you guys, come on. All right, well, I wanted to make you aware that I did go to that human trafficking conference last week and found it very, very interesting, and it sounds like Mr. Gandolfi already has someone on that comes in and talks to the senior students? It's a young gal. Is her first name Emily?
I think so, but I'm not 100%
Anyway,
sure.
I have her card. She knows you, and she knows you went to school with her dad, maybe? You know what I'm talking about? Anyway, I think, isn't there a new state law that says we need to be doing this, and isn't that why you're doing that?
We met with her earlier in the year.
Yeah.
And, she met with our guidance department, wanted to come in.
Oh.
They have a very good presentation. And then I think Sarah and I actually met with her. And then she went and met with Melissa Reddick and was going to start putting something together for girls at the high school.
Yes. I think that's just awesome. We really need to get that information out there. If anybody is interested, the lady that presented at the human trafficking last week was from Fort Wayne. She is meeting with area school districts across the state of Indiana. This next Wednesday, May 3rd, she'll be at Triton, which is over by Rochester, if anybody wants to go. I think a group of us from the community are going, so. I see you all snickering. Why are you snickering?
It's what we do at 8:37.
I'm so sorry, but it's such important stuff. And you know what, Mr. James, congratulations on being District 1 Business Manager. Good luck. And the same thing goes to Chris Flores as Transportation for District 1. And we wish both of you good luck when you go to Fort Wayne for your state recognition. Good luck on that.
Thank you.
All right. That's it from me. Dr. Bronco.
So we are back here on May the 15th for our board meeting. Remember, Jeannie, is it 6 or 6:30, the reception in the common area? We'll get that out this week. It is either 6 or 6:30. If you come at 6, that's okay. You'll be early and you can talk about it. The next night is our ISBA dinner at Teeble's, and we will hear from Brian Smith and Lisa Tansel on the 2017 legislative session and what they believe are the most impactful pieces of legislation for us as school operators. June the 4th is our graduation, of course, and June the 5th is our next meeting here where we will, again, at 6 o'clock do our work session to review board policies, picking up with 2464 and continuing as far as we can get. And that's what I have for calendar.
Larry, what day was the tables?
Your son,
May 20th.
May 16th.
Oh, 16th, I'm sorry.
Oh, yes.
You're right.
and you have not signed it yet.
I've been too busy talking, so
Well,
I
you're
don't get
a
it
maybe.
done. Huh?
You're a maybe, but if you
I'm a maybe.
come, we just pay interviewers. It's not a big deal.
Okay, all right. Anything else for the good of the cause?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second?
All right, we have a motion, and we have a second. Any discussion? Questions? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
7:30.